Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. First, I hope you're fine. You had a great break and that you are keeping in good health. I would like to welcome you to this course of ACC 221 Cost Accounting. Maybe some, yes, I know already some of your names are familiar. We have been together in another course, but I think the majority يعني we are meeting for the first time فإن شاء الله تكون ملاقات خير. Now, uh, so what we will do now is to just go through the course outline in general, okay? And that will be the first part. And then the second part, we will start on our first topic for this week, okay? Okay, so now, so we have this class, right? The lecture sessions Mondays, and then the tutorial sessions on Wednesdays, as per your section. Now, it's very important that you have the textbook, and here is the full reference for the textbook. I'm also to check how, because right now I think you can get the access. I'll put again the guidelines how you can go to the e-textbook site to get your book from there as a e-copy if you want. But the important thing is sources for your studying in this course. Okay, you're attending the classes and the sessions. You have materials uploaded and posted in Blackboard. Then you have the textbook. Actually, this will come first, textbook. And you practice doing all the assigned activities, homework, exercises, and make sure to assign some of your time during the week, about at least 2 hours, to go through the material, not to pile up. Okay, now as for the course assessment, and of course what you have that I'm showing here, and you have that will be posted also in Blackboard. If any change takes place, of course we'll let you know, but tentatively that is the plan. And we'll have engagement activities, and this relates to watching a video which is followed by a discussion question. You have to post your opinion, and this should take place after the tutorial session. And two of those, and you can see the details of when it will take place, and it will relate to which chapter. And also the total weight of the assessment. And then we have continuous assessments that consist of a short MCQ test, and it will take place right after the 2-hour session, in Mondays. And we'll have 3 of those, and you can see that when and which week and on what topic. Okay, so the idea is to have 2%. I'm coming to that, Ali. 2% for each quiz. This time, department will have midterm all courses. So the midterm exam. I will need to double check about the week, so we'll let you know. And 30%. Then there will be a case study on these chapters, and it's mainly طبعا the focus will be chapter 5, and the case study will definitely involve presenting your work as for the calculations part in Excel, and for the presentation part as a PowerPoint, and it's a group work, so we'll have the details later on. And then you have the final exam. Now, final exam, as far as we're concerned now, it is comprehensive, but we we still need to double check comprehensive, as in we decide in the course which topics from the beginning are relevant, or comprehensive. So that I will also, once I have double check with the head of department, and let you know. In any case, يعني, we always make sure during the semester you are being assessed in the different topics, so it will all be a matter of revising, and definitely even if comprehensive, the focus will be on the second part. Now, so what is it that learn from this course? So this course is cost accounting. Now, I'm sure you have all studied financial accounting, and now you are coming to another branch within accounting, which is cost accounting. So now from of course, the title here, cost. So it means that we need to learn what do we mean by cost? What are the different cost terminologies? What is the purpose for calculating costs and classifying costs, especially when it comes to manufacturing companies? Because the income statement for a manufacturing company is different. You have already, I think, studied service companies and merchandising. So here we want to study cost accounting, and specifically a manufacturing company, because they're more complex. Then we go on to look at, okay, how do we calculate costs? Is there methods that can be used? Is there a process for calculating costs? Yes. It depends on the type of the organization or the business. Yes. So what are these processes or methods for calculating costs? That is, we have job costing and process costing. So these are the two costing systems which we will look at, that help us how to calculate the costs within a company or the business. And then there is a particular type of cost, which especially when it comes to what we call the overhead costs. One type, and these are always not easy to calculate. And so we have also methods that have been designed to help in calculating these kind of costs as accurate as possible, especially in manufacturing companies, as well as the merchandising also in this. And this method is called activity-based costing. And then Uh, because we know that managers or companies will have to prepare budgets. And these budgets يعني اللي هي الquantitative الplans expressed in quantitative terms include أكيد يعني فيها it includes what they think about how much they will spend, okay, and the cost. Now it's very important then later on, okay, that they come, because managers also have the role of controlling. Okay, controlling اللي هي you come and check what have you achieved, how is it comparable to the budget. So in the budget you said you will spend X amount, and now actually you spent X amount or Y amount. So they are different. Why are they different? By how much they are different? So the variance, cost variances, okay, and then because that is also يعني calculating cost variances is important, so that it helps to see what happened, what took place, why, and how can we avoid it or enhance it if it's something good. And then we also are aware from financial accounting the way financial statements are prepared. Consider يعني the way it considers costs there, okay, that it calculates everything, looks at everything. The way it classifies the cost is different than, because we are in a cost accounting course, we need to be aware of another way of presenting this financial information in the financial statements. And so we will look at what is called the variable costing. So absorption costing and variable costing is basically looking at how the company wants to decide on the cost of its product, and then how to present this information in the its financial reports. Then finally, we also look at, or we want to learn, how is it that cost accounting information can be used, okay, more specifically, because in general يعني there must be a use for cost accounting information. And we say, yes, it has uses for planning, for controlling, for decision making. So we look at all these aspects through the different topics. And specifically, we focus on the break-even, what is known as the break-even analysis. As in how much, this is always the golden question. إنه if we are a manufacturing company or حتى any other type, the first thing we in our calculations, how many units do we need to sell in order just to recover the cost. And in business, to break even, this is step one. يعني at the least safe يعني stage you want before making any losses. Okay, so this is how we get to learn how costs can be calculated to determine the break-even analysis, or the break-even point. Okay, so this is the general learning outcomes from this course. Okay, يعني because we are talking cost accounting, to what extent can we really calculate true costs, and for what reason? I would like to share with you this video and see what kind of thoughts you come up with. Okay.
In 1968, Dr. Garrett Hardin introduced a principle. If a community shares a common resource like a pasture, and if each farmer is motivated by self-interest, they'll graze their animals as much as possible to get the maximum benefit from this shared resource until no grass is left. He called this the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the supermarket comes when people make purchases based on the cheapest price, without asking why something is so cheap. Imagine a children's story about two farmers. One grows cheap food. He takes government subsidies, uses cheap labor, pollutes the environment, and puts profits above people to create a cheaper product, which consumers want. They buy food in the same place they buy tube socks and lunch chairs, and they buy on price. The other farmer produces healthy food and is a caretaker of the environment. Except his prices are higher, so eventually he goes out of business. How does food get so cheap? First, by removing costs from the actual price of the product. But those costs don't go away. When you buy cheap food, you have to pay to clean up waterways polluted by factories and agricultural runoff. You pay a higher healthcare cost to cover uninsured workers. And you pay taxes for welfare and social services for workers who don't make enough money to raise a family. When you add these health, social, and environmental costs back into the price of cheap food, it suddenly isn't so cheap after all. True cost accounting. It helps consumers know their food and navigate through important decisions when they shop for their families. Do you know the real cost of the food you're eating? To learn more about terms like true cost accounting, external costs, and the tragedy of the commons, visit lexiconofsustainability.com. And remember, your words can change the world.
Okay. So I thought it's just something to, make you think about, yes, this idea about cost and how it's reflected in the price, and am I willing to pay this high price? And it's just all these, but we need definitely to be aware of the concept that, yes, we talk about cost accounting, and then let's have this at the back of our mind, the true cost accounting. Right. Now, to move on to the second half or the other half of our session, what we want to do, and that to start the with our curriculum. And so we have the first topic, okay, is an introductory topic to cost accounting, and it's titled An Introduction to Cost Terms and Purposes. So it makes sense that before we can start looking at how to calculate cost, let's first understand what do we mean by cost and what is this purpose of cost, what do we need it for. Yeah. So in this topic, okay, we have several learning objectives, several things I would like you achieve. And for today, we want to look at two things. Okay, and that by the end of today's session, you should be able to define and explain, give examples of what we mean by a cost object. And the second thing also is that you should be able to distinguish and differentiate between two types of costs. And these are what we call direct costs and indirect costs. معناها. So that means يعني have in mind that by the end of our session today, you want to come out with three things. يعني three terms that you can you understand and you know how to very well explain. Cost object, direct cost, and indirect cost. And it's very important. I like always when يعني we want to start discussing something, get to know what is it that we want to achieve from this thing. Because when I have it at the back of my mind, and as we go on, you, يعني as the student, will always relate to it and see, oh, how far is it from what you're supposed to achieve. Okay, so first of all, it's the cost object. That is the foundation when we talk about cost accounting. So that's why we need to understand what do we mean by this term and why is it important, okay, and what purpose does it serve. I have, before we proceed, just thought to share with you this video first, and then it will make our يعني the discussion, I think, more meaningful.
In this section, we're going to talk about how companies define cost. We're going to go through some terminology that you need to know for managerial and cost accounting. The first term we're going to talk about is a cost object. What is a cost object? All a cost object is anything for which managers want to find a separate measurement of cost. So what could be considered a cost object? Let's look at an example. We'll look at the Toyota company, Toyota Corporation, and let's look at a particular model of car. An individual unit, could that be considered a cost object? Would Toyota want to find out how much it costs to produce this particular model? Yes, they would want to find out, therefore it could be a cost object. How about different models within the corporation, such as the RAV4 or the Corolla? Would they want to find out how much different models would cost, or even different model lines, the RAV4 line or the Corolla line? Would they want to find out how much that would cost? Yes, they would. Therefore, those could be also considered a cost object. Moving along, if we look at, let's say, geographic locations, would Toyota want to find out whether their US operations or their European operations, how much those would cost? They would want to find that out, and if they do, the European segment or the US segment could be considered a cost object. How about different departments within the company, such as human resource or accounting? Yep, you guessed it. Those could also be considered cost objects. Now that we know what a cost object is, let's look at the different types of costs. Once you have identified your cost object, such as a particular car model, we have direct costs. Direct costs are defined as costs that can be traced directly to a cost object. And then we have indirect costs, which are costs that cannot be directly traced to the cost object. Let's look at some examples. Let's assume that a Starbucks cup of coffee is your cost object. What are the direct costs for this cup of coffee? Remember, the direct cost can be directly traced to this cup of coffee. We can trace coffee beans, we can trace water, also cream, the sugar, the actual cup and lid, and also the salary of the employee that made and served you the coffee. All those are costs that we trace to your cup of coffee. Now, for the same cup of coffee, let's look at what could be our indirect costs. Remember, the indirect costs are costs that cannot be traced to that particular cup of coffee. How about the salary of the other employees who work at the store? Those cannot be traced to that particular cup because they didn't work on this particular cup. The store rent, things like depreciation on store equipment and furniture, the cost of national advertising campaign, the CEO's salary, the rent for the corporate headquarters, also depreciation of office equipment that they use in headquarters. All those cannot be traced, those costs cannot be traced to your cost object, which is your cup of coffee. Let's take a look at a different cost object. This time, your cost object is going to be an individual Starbucks store. What would be the direct cost for this particular store? Earlier, our cost object was a cup of coffee. This time, it's a retail store. Again, remember, direct costs are costs that can be directly traced to this particular cost object. You have the cost of coffee beans, of cream, sugar, cups, lids. You also have coffee packets they have for resale, the cost of all the employee salaries. Every single employee, including the manager, their salary is a direct cost this time. Depreciation on store equipment, utilities, rent for the store, also any store specific advertising that this store does. Just for this retail store would be considered a direct cost. Now, if it's a national advertising campaign, then it's not direct because that advertising campaign, the cost relating to that is for all the Starbucks stores. But let's say that they send some Valpak coupons or something that you can be used at this particular store, that would be considered a direct cost for this store. Now, for our retail store, as our cost objects, let's look at what our indirect cost would be. Again, indirect costs cannot be traced to the cost object, so we're looking at things that we cannot, the cost of items that we cannot trace to this particular Starbucks retail store. The CEO's salary is something we cannot trace. Same with the corporate headquarters rent, depreciation on machinery used at the corporate headquarters, other stores expenses. So any other retail stores, let's say you've got one retail store in Louisville, Texas, but the retail store in Corinth, Texas, those expenses would be indirect costs if we're taking the Louisville Starbucks store as our cost object. Also, any national advertising campaigns that you do, the cost of those would be considered indirect cost for our particular retail store. To summarize, the total cost of a product is the sum of direct costs and indirect costs. Your direct costs can be traced to your cost object. However, your indirect costs cannot be traced to your cost object. So what we have to do is find a way to assign, or what we mean by assign is to attach these costs to your cost object. We say that we allocate. So you need to know the term allocate. We allocate the indirect cost to the cost object based on some criteria. We will learn about allocation later in the near future. So let's say you walked into Starbucks and bought a tall caramel ribbon crunch frappuccino for $3.95. You are paying for direct costs such as the coffee, the ice, the cup, the lid, and so on and so forth. Plus, you're also paying for that indirect cost such as the CEO's salary. That $3.95 you pay for that cup of frappuccino has all your direct costs, indirect costs, plus a markup. Markup is that profit Starbucks earns when they sell you that cup of coffee.
Okay. So, and I hope so from this video you got to know about cost object and what do you mean by it, why it's important, and it also told us something about the other learning outcome with regard to the direct and indirect cost, these two types. Okay, so let's have that information from the video at the back of our mind while we now proceed to discuss further. So the question first is what is a cost as a definition? Yeah. So and here you can see that it says a sacrifice of foregone resource to achieve specific objective. Yeah. If you want, right, to make profit by manufacturing a product and then selling it, you have to pay for it. Okay. You want to enjoy your time and drink coffee, you have to pay for it. So this is the thing. This is what we mean by the cost. That you have to let go of your what is this resource that you let go or sacrifice? Is the cash, the money you have. That is, you let go of that. Nazir, you are getting or achieving what you want. This is basically meaning of cost. Now, but are we talking about actual cost? Which means that this is actually took place, has occurred. Not like an estimated or a budgeted cost, as in this is what should be the cost. Okay, so we're just going through these terms. And then cost object. Cost object, as was in the video, because you start with the thing that, see, we want to know how much are we supposed to pay. We want to know how much we have to spend to make this product. So this, it means when you want to calculate the cost of something or an item, this item is the thing for which you want to measure the cost for it. Yeah, that is why we have to start from the cost object before anything else. Identify. Yeah. Do you want to, are you talking about calculating, right? Like in the video, the cup of the coffee? Or are we talking about, hey, let's calculate the cost incurred for this whole store of Starbucks? Yeah. Are we talking about, we want to calculate the cost of our factory branch in Sitra or our factory branch in Sikher, for instance? So here we have to, this is the cost object. Do we calculate the cost of our, let's say, the car models? Yeah, for this, for the Lexus, okay, Toyota Lexus, or for this, you were saying, for instance. Here you are trying to calculate the cost of this model versus this model. Umarat, within the model itself, you have different lines, so on. So that is why, before doing anything about costs, trying to see what are the different types of costs incurred here or how much or this, you start by saying what is your cost object. So, for example, these are examples of cost objects where in BMW, yeah. So meaning that the cost object can be a product, here one of their brands or models, the BMW X6. Okay. Or maybe they want to investigate about the cost of one of the services they provide to their customers. Okay, that hotline thing. So, okay, the hotline, that's a service. You can calculate how much that will cost. And they want to enhance and improve the way they manufacture their cars. So research and development, they'll spend money there. So they want to see how much that will cost. It can be a project, or you can have so yeah, how much does it cost to deal with, so we sell our BMW cars for different dealers. The dealers طبعا for us, because if we don't necessarily sell directly to people, we sell to dealers. So each dealer is considered as a customer. في costs incurred, or cost object. Yeah, they might want in BMW to calculate the cost of a certain activity. So how much does it really cost them to maintain, yeah, to do their maintenance for their equipment? That is another example of a cost object. Or we want to find the cost not necessarily of the product, but the cost of a department. يعني, for instance, if here health and safety, or maybe I want to see the HR department, the cost بتاعه كم compared to the IT department. So these are different examples for a cost object, and we need to be sure about it first before, okay, yeah, proceeding with doing anything with these costs. So continuing with important terminologies that we need to be aware of, the cost, I'll go to cost assignment first. Or actually, we'll start with cost accumulation. See, if we want to find how much does it cost BMW to manufacture its sports car X6, then there must be a way where they, right, collecting the information about how much they're spending. So that is why it's important that they should have a system for accumulating the cost. يعني imagine إنه okay, it's not enough that these are all my clothes and I put them on the bed. يعني it will be, how do I know when to wear this, what to do with this? That's why you use a closet عشان to organize your stuff. It's the same idea. If you want to at the end find out about how much it costs us to manufacture a product, فلازم يكون في system of gathering and accumulating, yeah, the information about the cost. So هنا a term accumulation. Now, I have all the, okay, there is a system, I have all the information of the cost being accumulated. بعدين, which amount, okay, belongs to which cost object? Which amount belongs to which cost object? So we have this cost accumulation system, but then the second process is to be able to assign all these amounts of costs being accumulated to the different cost objects. Okay, the system can do that using, right, the classification of costs, or the division of costs, as direct costs and indirect costs. How? So Lily was saying that, see, when we say this is a direct cost, it means in your cost accumulation system, it's very easy to say this amount is going to this cost object, and then it has spent this directly on that. Yeah, if we are talking about the cup of the coffee in Starbucks, amount of milk used to make that cup of coffee has a cost, which is only related, consumed, can be traced directly to this cup of coffee. So that's why when we want to know about the cost of a cost object, you will need either to trace the cost فتعرف ان they directly going to it, or مش or لكن and to also include لأن there are also other costs which should be part of the total cost of a cost object. Again, it is not always easy, yeah, to track it and trace it and say, oh, it spent this how much. But I like very much for this the example of advertising. So if we have our cost object is the Starbucks store, okay, في advertising that is done at the store level اللي هي بتخص الستور, this store only حوالين واو. This here is a direct cost. Okay. أما advertising that will help the company to help all its stores, yeah, this is an indirect cost, which means what? We cannot say this much is for this store or this. We can't trace it like this exactly. We have to find a way to divide it, basically. فدivide الكلمة terminology in cost accounting we use is allocate, assign. Okay, so we have to find a way to allocate these indirect costs. هنوزعها كيف على these now how? This is something you will definitely يعني be we will definitely come to it. Okay, now so this is يعني what at least by till up to here we want to make sure that we now really we are clear about what is a cost object and why it is important to identify the cost object. And then we can move on, as I said, that we need to also make sure we understand what is a direct cost and what is indirect cost. And now from our discussions and including the video also, I think we are getting a good idea of what do we mean by direct cost. Now, so direct cost, see, you can trace it to the cost object. Like in trace it in what sense? Two things. Easily, يعني conveniently, و economically. Meaning, I'll give you the example. Let's take cars and manufacturing of the cars or BMW دي. يعني one of the costs that they will have to incur relate to screws, nails المسامير. Imagine يعني this one can tell, oh, that's not an issue. We can tell exactly how many screws are being used in each car. So this car, this model, كل اللي في الفاكتوري, all these different models, 3-4 models في factory being manufactured. For when it comes to screws, we can trace it. He will say, see, ده هنا debatable. يعني yes, we will not say it is impossible. لكن in order to do it, أول حاجة it is going to take time. لأن these are small things, and to trace كل model, how many screws used, would they break easily, وتكسر كم, يعني it can be done but it's not convenient وما easy and ما economical لأنه this will require time وبعدين إحنا وينه يعني anything time is money so even if you want to use time to trace السكروز يعني is it worth it خلاص let's it's easier and more economical to consider it as an indirect cost فهنا when we say يعني something it's not about just thinking about the possibility that it can be a direct cost you see ما الإمكانية إنه possibility لأنه إحنا we're not talking about possibility we're talking about possibility لكن to include the convenience والإنها economical now for indirect costs so what are these خلاص we agreed that these you cannot track them بسهولة so either it is impossible for it to be tracked لأن impossible هو نوعه كده الكوست or it can but it is a direct cost but very difficult and uneconomical to consider it as direct so we will have it as an indirect cost these are the two ways for having an indirect cost now what do we do with them then if they cannot be traced allocate them so but allocate them ما حيكون زي ما بنقول شختك بختك يعني in a random way لا allocate them there will be a systematic or rational way of doing it on what basis this model will be charged 5% من قيمة this one will be charged 16% إلى آخره there must be a systematic way for doing it وإلا الكوست هتكون just something again going back to we're trying to calculate the cost يعني actual cost right as accurate as possible so so the relationship of these three terminologies yeah that we have a cost object this is what we want to find the cost of يعني to measure the cost okay now we will then have a cost type of cost okay if it is something direct then you will assign it to the cost object فهنا العملية بتاعت through tracing well indirect cost okay it is assigned to the cost object through allocation that is why here you will have documents to prove that this is a direct cost this amount is being assigned to this cost object وعندنا ما يثبت يعني بالdocuments this طبعا here this is going to be an allocation so it's not about proving yes this is exactly what has been spent no here it will be about yes we are implementing our system or way of allocation correctly so if we have now so for the direct costs some يعني of the materials okay the cost of materials can be considered as a direct cost if we're talking about the let's say we are in a factory for manufacturing the cars BMW factory so to make a car we need tires we need steel we need the engine we need those steel we need the yeah so if the material is easily traceable to the particular car then it's a direct cost but one can say material is an example of a direct cost only then I will say you are right because we can have another type of a material which is indirect cost اللي هو for example when we agreed about the screws في النهاية okay then we have labor as direct costs. Labor usually they are the workers, the people who are actually there, assembly يعني line workers. So they are in the we don't mean labor, we don't mean a cleaner اللي قاعد يعني the one who is outside the factory or inside cleaning or the security guard or لا. When we say labor, it means those workers who are actually involved in the manufacturing process. لا لا عمار yeah salesman ده يعني salesman in what sense يعني okay it's taking us to another level. So you're thinking of the salesman salary we pay to salespeople in the showroom, right? Now this is a good example. Now you're moving to the showroom. See, يعني showroom, that's another cost object, because we were talking about هنا factory, the cost object that making that car, which you see what I mean. So it can be because later on في a salesman في showroom, right, الcar هنا this is something يعني another type of cost you will see. It is classified as something else. It is definitely indirect لأنه it's not related, it cannot be traced directly for this products الموجودة في showrooms. So they will have to share. So definitely it's an indirect cost. Yeah. Did I answer your query? Okay. Okay, thank you. And so we have the indirect costs, which when talking about a car, making a car, and the car is our cost object. See, it's always, that is the thing. Always let's think about what is our cost object and then decide if it's a direct cost or indirect cost. Yeah. Then when I say electricity is an indirect cost for whom? For the car, if it's the cost object. Like in electricity of the factory building, if I am trying to calculate the cost of this factory branch, then it is direct. Yeah. So we have to be clear about the cost object to decide. That's why we say cost allocation challenges, as in you have to really think, always go back and think in terms of the cost object. Is it possible that we can say this is direct for it? And earlier already we discussed that يعني when we come to say is this a direct cost or indirect cost, what determines that? What factors can affect this classification? So we already said that, agreed that information يعني to gather an information about making a decision إنه ده direct cost or indirect cost, that is a factor. And if the information is difficult to get وما available يعني cost accumulation is very difficult through it, that we do something like this to tell us يعني for this particular cost and هو direct cost. So availability of information plays a role. Yeah. Direct or indirect cost object prices are same or different. No, because Bilal, yes, okay. For the question, yeah, because see, the one, يعني, your point here can be right if we're saying the amount of $30, which is a direct cost in this case, then it will be, you're saying there, now it will be considered as an indirect cost for another cost object. Like not necessarily it will be given, allocated the same amount, you see? Two things. We say, okay, now this cost with this amount is direct for this cost object. This cost is actually considered indirect for this cost object. When it is indirect, then المعادلة بتاعت calculating how much it will be there as indirect is going to be different. Then the direct means here we are sure of the amount. Shifting it to the other cost object, معناها we cannot be sure of the amount. It has to be allocated this amount separately. Accordingly, of course, that is definitely something to affect prices. Yes, absolutely. And when we say the materiality of the cost in question, factor to determine انه okay it's direct or indirect, يعني الامount of the cost itself. افتكري الامount of this كمان. Okay, as screws we can do our best and collect the information, لكن how much is the cost of the screws يعني as a percentage من ال overall cost مش بيطلع 0.0 whatever percent. Is it really worth ان احنا to really trace it وtrace it وtrace it? So that's why when we say يعني economically, as in consider also the materiality or the amount of this cost in question. This هو إنه لأن you know sometimes to decide that this is an indirect cost or direct cost ما هو تكون it's not that obvious or clear. It will require effort. هل الeffort we will put it يعني we have to ask ourselves بيسوى to do all this or not, especially if في النهاية ال percentage weight of the cost itself اللي عليه dialogue is not really something big. وبعدين then we have of course the design of the operations. That's another thing يعني sometimes the way this cost is being incurred here عشان this cost object the way of the يعني operations are being designed بيخليه يكون direct cost, whereas for another cost object because of the design of operations هو حيكون indirect cost. This is also another يعني third factor to put in mind اللي that can tell us or can affect if this cost is direct or indirect. So again, just like thinking about what is the cost object, deciding about the direct or indirect cost can also be يعني challenging and tricky. Not all in all cases straightforward. And this point here already we mentioned اللي هو it's related to Bilal's point إنه في cost يكون for a cost object direct, for another هو يكون indirect cost وعليه the amount obviously is going to be different, and here it will be traced for another amount, actual one. You have to always have this in mind. Once we decide that it is to be indirect معناه to be allocated, معناه another way, completely another way of accumulating the cost. So bottom line also, I think you would agree with this last sentence here that indirect direct classification للcost أكيد first يعني thing it depends on what? The cost object. What is your cost object will determine if this cost is direct or indirect. This is the first thing. Okay, so بس يعني let's have a quick this exercise here يعني بس to check our understanding of the costs, okay, differentiating cost as direct and indirect costs based on the cost object. فعندنا Cooper Furniture Company of Potomac, Maryland in US assembles two types of chairs. They make two types of chairs. Recliners اللي عندهم يعني like with the back يعملوا كده زي normal. Okay. So each طبعا type of chair will require separate assembly lines. يعني the people who are working here في الماشينز دي وده for this one is separate والnormal will require a separate one. We will have here a list of different costs. Look at each one, okay, and we need to decide if our cost object is the recliner chair. Would we consider the cost as direct or indirect? So I will start here the first one. فيعني عندنا the cost of fabric used on recliners. أيوة سارة. Yes, we have. Okay, excellent. Immediately you went for direct. أيوة لأنه خلاص you saw recliners. Finish. End of story. Very good. طيب نجي لبي. Salary of public relations manager for Cooper Furniture. أيوة. Let's see. Very good, nice, yes, because now we are talking about the salary بتاعت منو العلاقات العامة at the company level, so ما directly للclients. طيب C, very good, and then C, actually I should be writing with you, but anyway, C عندنا شنو؟ Okay, yes, indirect لأنه it's an event attended at the company level. D, cost of lubricant used assembly line. Yeah, and you know, يعني here I agree with you. وبعدين someone might say, really? For me, this lubricant oil can be يعني بيان مثلا is trying to say it's indirect. هل is it that easy, right? To determine انت تخيل اللوبريكانت oil ده من الزيت and the amounts كده small, so the same container will be used for lubrication here وهناك في ال normal chairs. Okay, so it is something يعني to argue about. Okay, this is the oil used for the recliners, but still يعني question, is it easy to determine to trace how much really oil has been used, خصوصا انه الاويل هنا is not going to be something specific unless you argue. يعني دي فيها طبعا unless you argue انه والله no الاويل ده lubricating oil this is only this type only used for recliners. هنا طبعا it's not clear, but I just want you to whatever you want to say, defend your point. خلاص this is to show that yes, I'm based on my assumptions, this is the answer. Okay, E, yes, right, absolutely, yes, لأنه ده ال transportation cost هنا for the recliners يعني direct. Electricity cost for recliner assembly line covers entire plant. Yes, see, exactly. يعني هنا you might say لا يعني direct والله indirect maybe هي الفاتورة أصلا it comes الbill for the whole factory. Is it possible then to work and find out and dig? Do we have a way of doing it? Yes, يعني ما هو كده منصور. If the answer is electricity, very difficult to trace it. يعني definitely yes, we might say ولا بتسوى انه we do that. One might say no, we can, there is a way, مش عارف technically we can do this or that. That's another thing. Yeah, okay, good. But these are two examples now items debatable. Wages paid to temporary assembly workers hired in periods of high recliner production. exactly. Exactly I agree. يعني ليه بيان you are going for indirect because ah sorry okay yeah H yes H the fire insurance definitely الفاير insurance طبعا okay so we are all agreeing yeah it is for the whole plant. And finally, wages paid to plant manager who oversees. See? Wadida or Mariam, I'm getting different answers. Ali Bardo is arguing it's D. So wages, see, which is a good point. Wages paid to plant manager خلاص حقة المدير اللي supervises the assembly lines for both chairs. هو بكون يعني he goes there takes the work هناك للnormal chairs وبيجي هنا recliners normal chairs. So do you agree it is very difficult أنه السالري في النهاية we say this can be direct ل recliner أو direct للnormal because at the end of the day it's indirect cost and not, you cannot trace it. وإلا one might argue no when he is خليه to record every time he is here of course يعني again this is why I tell you يعني when we say impossible to do it or possible to do it لا argument لأنه yes I can say yeah at the end of the day of course أي حاجة ممكن we can sit and think ونرجعها لأنها possible but how much will it cost you to do that in time the efforts yeah very good okay تمام so we have our two main things or learning objectives for this session اللي هي cost object هي شنو وأهميتها and then the second thing classification of cost as direct or indirect وده كيف و how challenging it is. Any questions? Okay تمام okay anyway at any moment you can feel free to ask يعني. Thank you so much so take care وإن شاء الله we'll meet on Wednesday مع السلامة with more exercise.